All right, so I'm going to continue playing around with trying to resolve collisions with the enemies in this video. So when we last left off, I was just having the enemies push the player in a whatever direction they hit it from, and it kind of works okay. There's some weird things that happen on the edges of the screen. I think my player just fell off. And there's weird things that happen when we get pushed up against a block and when we land on them from the top. But that's okay. I think we can experiment a little, and maybe we can come up with something a little bit better. Again, this is not a how-to video. This is just a video to gain some insight, and hopefully between each of the 3 videos on collision resolution, you'll come up with something that fits the mechanics of the game you want to create. So I'm going to move out of the way, and let's start playing with some code. So all right, so what I want to try to do now is, instead of nudging the enemy just so it's off of, or nudging the player so it's off of the enemy, I want to make the player, I'm going to try to just give it a little bit of a bounce instead. All right, so I'm going to take each, so here's when I hit the enemy from the left side. And what I want to do is just take my enemy, self.rect.x, and I'm just going to subtract a bunch from it. And let's see if we can just get a quick, just like bounce of 15 pixels. And on this side, I'll say self.rect.x plus equals 15. And I'll do the same thing. Right? When we fall down upon an enemy, let's take the y value and we'll subtract 15. And we don't need that anymore. And when we hit an enemy from below, we'll take the y value and we'll add 15 to it. And so we're just going to kind of try to give our hero a bounce off of the enemy. So let's see if this works. I'm going to jump in here and weird. Okay, whoa. So it looks okay here. And it seems to be okay when I'm getting nudged that way. But when I land on it from the top, if I'm near a platform, let's see if I can do it not near a platform. Get some weird glitchiness, especially that wasn't supposed to happen, where I just kind of teleported through. So some glitchiness around platforms. So maybe that's not the best way to make the bounciness happen, right? But at least I learned something here. Let's think about why this happened, actually. So what I did is I pushed my player in some particular direction, and we don't resolve the, let me move this back to the way it was originally. We don't resolve collisions until we get into the move and check platforms function. So, we check the enemies and we adjust the, so this adjusts the coordinates of where the hero is. And then we get into move and check platforms. And the problem is, move and check platforms is looking at the velocity of the hero to decide which direction to give it a nudge. And, when we are manipulating the coordinates of our hero without changing the velocity, I think, we're getting into this move and check platforms, and it might think we're coming from one direction when we're actually not, and it resolves things the wrong way, and we end up glitching through platforms. So I'm going to do something else instead, and I'm going to actually try just changing the velocity. And so I'm going to try changing the velocity to, let's see, maybe negative 15 when I'm hitting from the left side. So it'll bounce, the velocity will be 15 to the left. And if I'm hitting from the right side, I'll take the velocity in the x direction and set it equal to positive 15. We'll do the same thing with the vy's. Let's see, if we hit from above, we'll set it equal to negative 15. And if we hit from below, we'll set the y velocity to positive 15. And let's see what happens. I'm going to jump in here. And now nothing happened. Well, something happened there, but when I hit sideways, I'm not getting any nudge at all, and then I get this huge bounce. So let's think about why. And you caught me. I had to undo something earlier in the video for this. But right here where we check the enemies, right, this is where we're applying the velocity. But by the time on the next iteration of the game loop, by the time we go to move and check platforms, right, we have already changed the velocity based on keyboard input. Or where is it? Down here in the move left and move right functions, where we change the this is the keyboard input that changes the velocity. So even though we change the velocity variable of the hero for an instant here, by the time we actually got around to doing any moving, the velocity is no longer, the 15 and negative 15 like we thought it would be. And so what we want to do is I'm just going to take the move and check platforms, and move it to after the check enemies. That way, any velocity we impart on the player here will still be set when we try to move and check platforms. And so we're going to get one frame of the game loop where the human player is actually not in control. And then on the next iteration through, the velocity is back to what it is on user input that we grab in the game loop. So let's check this out. And so I hit from above, and that was a big bounce. But let's look at the sideways nudges. And I get a nice bounce, so I can tell I'm getting hit. That looks good. Seems to work this way. Little bizarre up against the edge, but and I'm not sure what to do there. Let's try when we're up against a platform this way. And not so bad, right? There really wasn't a way to resolve it. And then let's try landing on one from above. Okay, maybe a little too bouncy, kind of like jumping. Let's get in here. That's kind of weird. So, when I see this, it's like, well, maybe I'm making it a little bit too bouncy in the vertical direction. And then this kind of glitchiness that is happening in here. Maybe we can come up with a solution to that, or maybe we should just consider the layout of our game and just put ourselves in a situation where that doesn't happen. So these numbers I have in here, these are just things to, I guess, my jump power is what? Oh, that's exactly the same as my jump power. So that's basically like jumping. So maybe that's a little bit too much. So I'm going to just change my Y to 5 and negative 5, and see how that looks. And that's actually, maybe not so bad. I still am not quite sure what I want to be able to do in there. And when I am on something, I don't know, I can't jump to get off right now. I can run sideways to get off, but seems to be pretty okay right now. All right. So anyway, again, nothing I've shown you in this video is like you must do it this way. But between this video and the last video, now you've seen the difference between perhaps trying to nudge a player by setting the edges of the rectangle. What happens if you try to set the velocity, and what happens if you try to set the velocity of the rectangle? And we have a little insight into how the order of things in the update functions might impact what we see on the screen. So this should give you something to play with. All right. And I would say, maybe take this as a starting point and go back, and think about what you learned in the last video as well. And maybe you can combine them or arrange things differently, and you can get an effect that looks pretty great for your game. So I think that's all I got for this video. Thanks for watching, and have fun experimenting with this. All right. I will talk to you in the next video.